Welcome to Echoes of Battle. In this video, we will be covering the Battle of Shiloh in the Civil War. Thank you for watching and enjoy.
In April 1862, Union and Confederate forces converged on a remote stretch of the Tennessee River Valley, drawn by a network of rivers and rails. This chart compares the human cost of early battles. At Shiloh, 23,746 men were killed, wounded, or missing in just 2 days, a figure that surpassed the casualties of all previous American wars combined. After 1 year of conflict, the Western Theater had become the primary vulnerability for the Confederacy, an expansive region where its core economic arteries were suddenly exposed to Union thrusts. The collision at Shiloh was a deliberate Confederate counteroffensive designed to exploit a temporary gap between two moving Union armies. Military options in this vast space were dictated by transport logistics. Rivers allowed Union forces to drive deep into the South, while railroads allowed Confederates to shift troops laterally to block them. The outcome was determined by physical constraints, the friction of the terrain, the breakdown of command structures, and the mathematics of troop arrival. This map traces the initial Union advance. In early 1862, Major General Ulysses S. Grant utilized the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers as invasion highways, securing Fort Henry and Fort Donelson. Losing these critical waterway checkpoints forced Confederate forces into a massive retreat, abandoning much of Kentucky and Middle Tennessee to the Union. The Confederates consolidated a new defensive perimeter around Corinth, Mississippi. 2 major railroad lines crossed here, making it the most vital transportation hub in the Western Theater. To threaten Corinth, Grant moved 44,000 troops down the Tennessee River, establishing an encampment at Pittsburg Landing to wait for further orders. He was instructed to hold his position until Major General Don Carlos Buell arrived with 15,000 men of the Army of the Ohio. For the senior Confederate commander, General Sidney Johnston, this temporary separation offered a critical window. With 40,000 troops at his disposal, he aimed to march north and destroy Grant before Buell could arrive and shift the numerical balance. Johnston's army began the march north toward Pittsburg Landing on April 3rd. Moving tens of thousands of men, artillery, and supply wagons through dirt roads quickly became a severe logistical problem. Heavy spring rains turned until the night of April 5th. By the time they deployed for battle early the next morning, the troops had exhausted their rations and were fatigued before making contact. The geographical friction had already cost Johnston valuable time. The success of the assault relied on maintaining sheer momentum to break Grant's lines before the reinforcements crossed the river. At dawn on Sunday, April 6th, the Confederate Army struck. The Union forces, having posted no advance scouts, were caught completely off guard. The initial assault slammed into the Union camps situated around a small log structure known as the Shiloh Meeting House. Grant had ordered no defensive entrenchments to be dug here. The sudden violence of the Confederate charge forced the startled Union regiments to fall back, yielding ground rapidly. However, the local topography began working against the attackers. As Confederate units pushed forward, thick forests, steep ravines, and swampy terrain forced them to diverge. Formations intermingled, command cohesion eroded, and the assault lost its coordinated shape. Amid this chaos, Union troops under Generals Prentiss and Wallace established a firm defensive anchor in a dense thicket along a sunken farm road. This pocket became the focal point of the battle. Incoming musket fire was so thick, survivors compared it to a swarm of angry hornets. For 7 hours, the position absorbed 14 separate Confederate frontal charges. Unable to break the line with infantry alone, Confederate General Ruggles assembled 50 cannons, directing concentrated, massed artillery fire straight into the timber. The Union soldiers in the Hornets Nest were eventually surrounded and forced to surrender, but the cost was exacted on the Confederate Army. The expenditure of manpower and hours required to neutralize this single pocket consumed the momentum Johnston relied on. It provided Ulysses S. Grant the window he needed to organize a new line of defense. During the struggle for the Union left flank, the Confederacy suffered a catastrophic loss of command. General Sidney Johnston was struck in the leg by a bullet, severing a major artery. He ignored the wound and bled to death. theater command immediately devolved to his second-in-command, General P.G.T. Beauregard. Situated far to the rear, Beauregard lacked a clear picture of the ongoing engagements. His distance from the front lines compounded the existing unit disorganization. Without Johnston's direct supervision, Confederate commanders struggled to synchronize their units for a coordinated push. As the Confederate structure fractured, Grant pulled his surviving forces into a tight defensive arc around Pittsburg Landing. This position was geographically secure, with flanks anchored by ravines and the river. To reinforce the perimeter, the Union massed cannons along the heights and brought heavy naval gunboats close to the shoreline, projecting a wall of fire. As night fell, Beauregard made a fatal miscalculation. Convinced Grant was defeated and merely required mopping up, he ordered his exhausted troops to halt. He dismissed intelligence reports warning that Union reinforcements were actively arriving. The loss of the senior Confederate commander, colliding with a fully anchored Union defensive perimeter, stalled the Confederate plan right at the moment it required peak leverage. The night of April 6th brought severe thunderstorms. Thousands of wounded and exhausted soldiers from both sides lay exposed, enduring a miserable, drenching rain. While the Confederate Army sought shelter, a logistical shift was taking place at the landing. Under the cover of darkness, 15,000 fresh troops from Buell's Army of the Ohio crossed the river on steamboats. Simultaneously, a delayed division commanded by General Lew Wallace finally reached the western flank, further bolstering the Union line. This chart visualizes the shift. By dawn, the Union force grew to 54,000 men, facing a depleted Confederate force of 34,000. Recognizing this superiority, Grant abandoned his defensive posture and ordered a coordinated southward counterattack across the line. The Confederate infantry attempted to mount local countercharges, but their efforts were fractured. Outnumbered and fighting on empty stomachs, they were steadily forced backward over the ground they had captured the day before. By late afternoon, Beauregard assessed his deteriorating position and realized his army faced total destruction. He issued the order to break contact and execute a full withdrawal south toward Corinth. Grant's capacity to absorb an immense initial blow, integrate complex logistics overnight, and pivot instantly back to the offensive sealed the Confederate defeat. Johnston's gamble to destroy the Army of the Tennessee and reverse Western momentum had failed. By holding the battlefield, the Union secured its logistical foothold and maintained the strategic initiative for the duration of the campaign. With the Confederate Army pushed back, Union forces resumed their advance, capturing the Corinth rail hub by late May. This operational success paved the way south, enabling the capture of Memphis and the siege of Vicksburg, finally severing Confederate control of the Mississippi River. In the immediate aftermath, Grant faced severe political and public backlash. Critics pointed to his failure to fortify the camps at Shiloh. Shiloh established the pattern Grant would rely on for the remainder of the war: the capacity to absorb a catastrophic blow and immediately pivot to a counteroffensive once reinforced. The scale of casualties at Shiloh ended expectations of a short conflict, signaling the start of a grim, multi-year struggle of attrition.
Thank you for watching our video. Please like and subscribe, and thank you. Have a great day.